The modern supermarket is the epitome of plenty, where shelves are permanently stocked and the only queues are at the checkout. But this precarious system now faces serious pressure points. Over the past few decades, we've all got used to the idea that we deserve cheap, abundant food whenever we want it. But for how much longer can that comfortable model survive? Is the era of cheap food finally coming to an end? Lincoln, Nebraska, where corn is king. The heart of North America, where the state and the football team are known as the Cornhuskers. But the Corn Belt is at the centre of a crippling drought.
This is the worst drought in 50 years, and we really don't see any end to it. The spatial area that is being consumed by drought right now in the U.S. is we're over 65% of the lower 48 states are in drought right now.
The U.S. Drought Monitoring Service has tracked the spread of drought. Almost half of all America's counties have been declared disaster areas.
We have had places across the U.S. that their precipitation record for this year is comparable to what we saw in the 1930s, or in some cases even worse.
Crop failures can shape history. Prices are on a roller coaster. They're not yet at the high of 2011, when protests led to the Arab Spring. But they're inching closer to the spike of 2008, when there were riots in Haiti and Egypt. And this is the third spike in just 5 years.
Squeeze it together.
Ron Hollins farms soybeans and corn. And like the 1930s, he's faced record temperatures and almost no rainfall.
We've only had a couple of inches during this growing season.
So have you been pretty much raising these crops on one rainfall?
Yes. Right here, our soybean yields are down by 2/3, and our corn yields are down by about 1/3.
And there have been droughts in Russia, Kazakhstan and India as well. And 40% of America's corn crop is diverted to create biofuels. Finding an alternative to gasoline has put even more pressure on supply. All that means rising prices.
Looking at soybean oil, looking at high fructose corn syrup from the corn crop, and look at how many products those are being used in. And as that market stays high, we're going to see that impact through numerous products that we use on a day-to-day basis.
It's American football night. The Cornhuskers face their great rivals from Wisconsin. For the fans stocking up before the big game, most price rises will take a while to enter the system. But fluctuations are already hitting the meat markets.
Meat is going to be one of the main ones. Meat and dairy products. Many of those animals are being fed grain and hay products that right now are on short supply, and prices are very high.
With the price of feed going up, Rod Kristen has had to slaughter early. 10% of his herd is gone. His parents, his grandparents and his great-grandparents farmed this land. Now his children want to follow in his footsteps. But his dad can remember when the rains failed in the 1930s, when the land became a dust bowl.
At one time, it got so dark at noon from the dust that my folks lit the lamps so we could see to eat dinner.
Farmers are used to hardships. We can roll with the punches. We'll survive this just like anything else. First stage would be the older cows go first, or if they're too big of cows that take more feed than the rest of them, then those are the ones that are continuing to go now.
Demand is the other pressure point on prices. Rod's cattle grow on a mix of pasture and liquid supplement, but cattle raised on grain need some 7 kilograms to produce just 1 kilogram of meat. And global demand for meat is rising as people get richer, so demand for grain will rise in step. On top of that, each year the planet's population grows by some 70 million.
I think we're facing pressures on natural resources, certainly on land and on water. The large amount of the increase in food production over the last 20, 30 years was as a result of being able to allocate more water for irrigation, for irrigated agriculture.
Roberto Lenton has advised the UN on using water more efficiently in agriculture. He thinks we must cut the land we use to grow biofuels and grow more food.
You have a situation of increasing demands for food. Clearly, if we want to be serious about global warming and climate change, we have to look at alternative energy sources. But biofuels has all kinds of implications on food supplies.
Football matters here. The Cornhuskers have sold out every home game since 1962. Back then, droughts were a once-in-a-generation event. Now, scientists warn that a long-term rise in temperatures could make droughts like this summer's more frequent, even in areas where rainfall has been normal.
In a changing climate, I think we need to be more prepared for droughts that are maybe more frequent and more intense. But the main thing that we have seen over the last several decades is this temperature component, and we have seen that on the upswing.
Nebraska has had a difficult summer. The fans could do with a break. So what's in play? Agronomists are confident we can still step up supply with better use of water and soils. And could we run with the high-tech approach, genetically modified crops, that perhaps can better resist drought? We wanted to ask the man who directs Nebraska's agricultural policy. We found him pitchside.
We're already seeing in this drought year here in Nebraska where the science and technology that we've applied to our crops are helping us produce more. Our crops are able to use the water and the nutrients more efficiently. And we think that as we look forward, we'll be able to identify genes within those crops that will resist drought and produce even more bushels under extreme drought conditions like we experienced here in Nebraska this year.
The Huskers need a comeback. With 10 minutes to go, they're 10-27 down. Time's ticking away. Can supply shortages be tackled with crop science? Do we use the cornfields to grow more food or cleaner fuel?
Then we're going to come out of here as a victor, okay? Bust your ass! Effort, effort, effort!
Or do we wrestle with the trickier problem of demand? If we are to support more and more people, we may each have to consume less and be less wasteful. 40% of food in the United States alone is never eaten, simply thrown away. The security of our food system is threatened by restrictions on supply and ever-increasing demand. And just one knock to that system can send prices rocketing. But how we increase supply and bring down demand will require some really tough decisions. It was a hard night for Nebraska, but they fought back, winning 30-27. 85,000 people went home happy. But it promises to be a tough autumn. Harvests are down, and unless there's significant rainfall and then snow over the winter, next year will be even tougher. With corn and soy prices edging ever higher, global food security has never been more vulnerable.